Alright, so this is going to be an info dump about all the information that I know of that's relevant to the Tears of the Kingdom any percent speedrun. We're going to go over the basic route and also some strategies that I used in my current run, which is linked down below. Obviously, this video will contain major spoilers for the game, so if you don't want to know anything, you should probably click away now. Also, the progress on the speedrun will update fast, so if you see this video a few days after it's been published, it's probably outdated and you should seek newer videos and updates about the run. So first things first, from what we can tell, almost none of the glitches that were present in Breath of the Wild seem to have made it into Tears of the Kingdom. Things like whistle sprinting, BLSS, and skew seem to have all been patched by various means. That doesn't necessarily mean that we won't ever be able to perform these glitches, but just that the methods we know of activating them in Breath of the Wild won't work in this game. As far as the basic route goes, we go through the beginning of the game with Zelda, wake up on the Great Sky Island, and go through the expected sequence to complete the 4 shrines and send the Master Sword back into the past. As far as I can tell, there isn't any obvious way to get around this sequence since a lot of it is trigger-based. In my current run, it took about 42 minutes from starting the game until I could go down to Hyrule, but I'm sure we'll be able to cut down that time as new things are found. Now at this point in the route, it is possible to just go to the final boss right away, but we don't have much equipment after the Great Sky Island, so we need to stock up at least a little bit before we get there. Because we didn't beat any of the dungeons, we also have to fight all the dungeon bosses right before the final boss. In my run, I got the paraglider since I couldn't figure out a way to beat Colgera without it, although I wouldn't be surprised if it's possible to do somehow. For weapons, we start by getting the 3 broadswords available in the training area at Lookout Landing. These weapons are good because some weapon classes now have special abilities that come with them. Any royal weapon has improved Flurry Rush, which makes the weapon do twice as much damage when flurry rushing. Any knight weapon has Desperate Strength, which makes the weapon do twice as much damage when we're at 1 heart or less, and any soldier weapon has Quick Charge, which makes the weapon charge quick spins faster. As you can imagine, improved Flurry Rush and Desperate Strength are very useful with how much damage we have to do in the final boss fights. Quick Charge doesn't do any extra damage, but is useful in one of the fights that we'll get to later. Now with these weapons, I activate the Lookout Landing Skyview Tower and then fly to Hyrule Castle to get more weapons and some good fuse parts. Eventually I'm sure that we'll simply resort to using almost exclusively the weapons that are dropped in the final fight itself, but for now I just wanted a route that made the final boss more tolerable for my first runs. Once we dive down to the depths, we ignore the Horriblins and kill the electric keys for some electric fuse parts. These come in handy specifically for Queen Gibdo, who's definitely one of the harder bosses of the final boss Gauntlet. We also take some time to kill the Lionel that's down here because his fuse parts and his bow are very powerful and allow me to one-cycle a lot of the dungeon boss phases. We kill the Silver Lizalfos archer at the bottom of the Lizalfos tower for his horn, get some blue chew jellies for Muktarok, and grab the chest with 10 bombs behind this pile of rubble since bomb arrows in conjunction with the Lionel bow are very powerful. We also collect the Silver Bokoblin horn and 4 Gibdo bones on the way down. Just like bomb flowers, Gibdo bones can do a lot of damage with the Lionel bow since you basically get a 3-for-1 deal on them. At this point, we can fuse together the weapons and materials that we have. Specifically, I want to fuse the 44 power Lionel part to a Knight's broadsword and the 40 power Lionel part to a Royal broadsword. The 102 power Knight's broadsword now allows for easier one-cycle phases on Muktarok and Queen Gibdo, which is why I chose that combination. Now, the army phases of the final boss Gauntlet are all very chaotic, but thankfully there are some strategies we can use that make them consistent enough. For the Bokoblin phase, we start by shooting a ruby into the center of the pack to kill a lot of them at once, and kill some of the weaker front Bokos with our spear. The strategy at this point is to try and lure packs of Bokoblins to the edge of the arena, and then quickly move away and blast them all off with a bomb arrow. Ideally, we only have to do this twice to kill all the Bokoblins except the archers, and then we can just shoot each archer with 1 arrow shot as well as pick up their arrows. For the Lizalfos, we start off with the same ruby shot and then kill the stragglers with arrow shots, except the black Lizalfos, which we can flurry rush for. For the Gibdos, we just shoot each one with a fire fruit and that's enough. I opted to leave one alive and use their slow movement as an opportunity to fuse one last weapon together that I picked up in the fight. It's also a good opportunity to pick up the Gibdo bones from all the ground Gibdos. For the Moblins, we can use the Sapphire from Hyrule Castle to freeze them, and finish off the survivors with our bow and Silver Lizalfos Reaper. Next up is Colgera, and this fight is easy as long as we can avoid Colgera's attacks. Just use bullet time to shoot the crystal weak points, and that's it. Sometimes avoiding the tornadoes can be difficult, but otherwise this boss isn't bad. For Marbled Goma, we can recall one of the initial rocks it throws out to stun it, and then ascend upwards onto its body to lash out on the eye. The second phase is the same, except this time we just move one of the boulders it tries to trap us with instead of using recall. Muktarok is also pretty easy. Just shoot with the blue chew jellies to reveal it, and then stun it with an arrow to wail on it with the Lionel-fused broadsword. On the second phase, I prefer to use a Keese eyeball to be sure that I get the stun hit in. For first phase Queen Gibdo, we shoot her with an electric Keese eyeball to knock her down, and then 2 Gibdo bone shots with the Lionel bow will stun her for the sword wailing. The second phase is the same, except sometimes the grounded Gibdos can be annoying, so you have to be careful and try to avoid them. If I notice one of them next to me about to strike, I try to move out of the way to let its attack go by, but sometimes I still get hit anyway, so we'll probably have to figure out something better for that. For the Seized Construct, this is where we take out the soldier's broadsword with the quick charge, since the spin attack knocks him back pretty fast. It's basically just rinse and repeat the spin attack until he's dead, with the only exception being when he's in the air to use a bomb arrow to knock him down. At the start of Phantom Ganon, we can melt down the left 2 with 3 Lionel bomb arrow shots, and then finish off the rest with our Flurry Rush weapons. The second phase is the same, except we get 3 Phantom Ganons in our bomb arrow radius this time instead of 2, and then the last 2 are dealt Flurry Rushes. One important mechanic to note here is that you do not need to be targeting the Phantom Ganon that you're trying to Flurry Rush for the Flurry Rush to take effect. As long as you're relatively facing them and perform the necessary side hop or backflip, the Flurry Rush will activate on the correct enemy. This goes for all enemies, including the upcoming Ganondorf fight. All phases of the Ganondorf fight are basically just Flurry Rush fests, from what I can tell. The only real exception is when he brings out the Gloom Claymore to do a smackdown attack that you avoid by flying in the air. If that happens, it's best to just shoot fused arrows at him with whatever parts you have left. Once Ganondorf is down, the hard parts are over. The Demon Dragon fight isn't hard, and if you die, you just get to retry it anyway. So that's the overview of the route and weapons that I used. The way I did it is almost certainly not optimal, but was just a decent way to get weapons which made the final fights tolerable. I should also note that I didn't use any amiibo in my run. Using amiibo to spawn Epona and create some attack up food I'm sure is faster to do, but it was fun to figure out a route without those things first. Once again, these strategies will probably be outdated pretty quickly, so if it's been a few days since this video has been published, be sure to seek out newer information. Links to my stuff, and also the Tears of the Kingdom speedrunning Discord server are in the description. Thanks for watching.